Hello and welcome to the live coding happy hour for Friday, January 27th, 2017. I am Dave Slusher. I'm joined by my colleagues Chuck Tomasi and Josh Nerius. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Dave.
So we're going to go around horn in a second. We are going to continue going forward with our automated testing scenario that we went from last week. I kind of figured out some of the problems that I had. We're going to look at strapping a few more tests in. We're going to maybe see if we can do some server-side Jasmine testing and figure out a few other things we can do with this. We are very much in the position of users that would be basically, we are in hour 2 of having ever looked at automated testing framework. So we are we're basically modeling what the customers are going to go through at this point. So if you can, let's go around the horn and introduce ourselves, starting with Chuck.
Hey, I'm Chuck Tomasi, Platform Architect with ServiceNow. Been here since mid-2006 and seen a lot of changes, and we'll leave it at that.
That's very cryptic. All right, there we go. Josh.
And I am Josh Nerius. I'm a developer evangelist in the platform business unit here at ServiceNow. And 2006, Chuck, really?
No, did I say 2010?
Okay, that sounds a little better. I'm like, I don't
been
think
6.5 years. I said it like 150 times at our sales kickoff last time. Like, how long you been here? 6.5 years.
All right, and I am Dave Slusher, developer evangelist in the platform business unit, developer.servicenow.com. All right, I'm going back to an old reliable. I'm not going crazy craft. I'm just drinking a fine standard Rolling Rock from Latrobe, Pennsylvania.
Very nice, very nice. I have not had a Rolling Rock in a number of years. I can't even remember.
Rolling Rock is like my baseline beer. It would be like my Bud Light. It's kind of as low as I can stand to drink. It was actually an experiment where I said, "Well, have I craft beered up my palate so much I can't enjoy a Rolling Rock?" But they're still fine.
Nice.
What do you got, Josh?
So this week I have something a little bit different. I've got a Dragon's Milk bourbon barrel aged stout.
He's hitting the hard stuff.
I am, and I wasn't going to pull this out, but it was the only thing in my fridge other than Michelob Ultra, which I kind of put in the Rolling Rock territory. No offense, Dave.
and
so I'll be drinking this slow.
To go to the non-craft beer, I'm also drinking some of my beer from my Secret Santa. I am having a fine Tecate.
Nice.
And you know what they say about the first beer of the day.
It's always the best.
I feel guilty about my Dragon's Milk now, guys. So
there is no reason to. We're kind of defining edges of a continuum here.
Someone's spending his quarterly bonus early.
All right, let me. I have flipped around so much, I've lost my window. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing. Although at some point we may want to switch over to Josh at some point, depending on what we do. Because Josh has some ideas about doing some Jasmine stuff that I have not done, and he actually maybe has a better handle on it than I do. So I'm going to go ahead and.
Before you do, though,
screen share.
Is Chuck going to do his quick tip?
I can do that.
Okay, I'll let you. So yeah, this is a new feature. It's so new that I forgot that we had the feature, even though we spent most of the last 10 minutes talking about it. And so we're going to have basically the API tip of the week, which is either a obscure, underused, under-documented API or a new API, something that's useful that may not be out there in the mind share. So Chuck is going to cover a couple. That were released in Istanbul, I believe.
Were they in Istanbul? Oh, you wanted to do those APIs. I thought you were talking about.
Well, we can do Chuck. We can do.
Yeah, let's do that.
You're ready to show anything? Well, you just tell me.
That's how new it is, people.
It's live coding and live planning.
I am screen sharing. Am I not?
Yes, you are. We see it.
Okay, I have to apologize for the voice. It's a little worn out from sales kickoff. That's what singing Twist and Shout for karaoke will do to your throat. And there's a reason why John Lennon always sang it last. So I have, what Dave was alluding to is there's a whole bunch of new APIs for the time and date functions. And I covered those on Tech Now as part of our Istanbul features. And this was also on Tech Now so if you've already seen episode 34, this is going to look like a bit of a review. Let me make the font just a little bit larger. And what I found in the community was a series of API calls in Glide Record, referring back to the Beatles again. I swear every time I turn on the Beatles station on Pandora, I hear another Beatles song I've never heard before. And I have to admit, I'm not the world's biggest Beatles fan. I don't own Rubber Soul and the White Album and a whole bunch of those. But what I did find is a Glide Record API, actually a series of them that I had no idea they were there. And I'm still struggling with the use case for this, but there's 4 methods. One is called get location. So let's put together a quick incident query. New Glide Record incident, right? Our standard stuff here. Incident.query. We'll just get the active ones. Yes, you can do that active query if you wanted to. And then we'll go get them. You guys can watch and make sure I'm not. How we get records, I'm just going to, tab put it in this thing, but we'll for now. I'm going to do get an N and say inc.get location. Now this is what row number I'm on. We'll do a gs.debug, n equals n plus number equals inc number. In the spirit of life, hour, we'll take a drink. It works. Hooray, it worked. I didn't sort these in any way, shape, or form. I probably should have to make this a little more obvious that we're going in some kind of order. But this says I can return to this location at any time. So if I wanted to go back to, say, record number 29 at position 7, there was something special about that I really wanted to hang on to. I can later go and say inc.set location 7. Should see debug number equals number. That should be 7 at the end. There we go. Or excuse me, 29, because that's what was at position 7. So I can use this pointer arbitrarily, much like the good old days where you had file pointers. I don't know if anybody remember that, but that's effectively what we're doing, is moving this pointer back and forth in the record search pattern so that we can go. Now there's a couple more. One is called save location, save location, which is different than get location and set location. Get and set, remember those two go together. Save location works more like a stack of size 1. I can, or the memory, the M+ button on your calculator. You can store a number over there. So let's arbitrarily go through this again and say, instead of just getting the number, we'll say if, we'll do an increment here, Rn equals 0, effectively the same thing. We'll do if n equals 13, just for some reason, record 13 was our favorite. We'll do, sorry, I tabbed again. Inc.save location. I don't really do anything special with that, but I'll continue to print the numbers in sequential order, and I will save them. And then what I do down here is say restore location. That's the complement to that one. I don't pass these any arguments because it's saving an internal counter. And what do you expect happens? Well, it gets all the way through and, oops, I forgot to increment n. You weren't watching. Pay no attention to that. This is live coding happy hour. Do we keep saying that? N++.
There we go.
Okay. Now I get my number counting. Number 13 is in 44. Why does it say 12? 12 happens to be the last record. Here's what I discovered, and it took me a while to get this. I have to do right after this inc.next to sort of reload where that pointer is. And there's still one more surprise in store for you. It goes to 46. I saved 13. 13 was 44. 14 is 46. we may have an internal off by one bug here somewhere. But it's worth noting that you can use those in that way. Maybe the pointer is between them and it goes to the next one. It doesn't work without the next. And if you put the next in, you get the next record. So what's up with that? You can't put the next before or the restore location won't work. If you don't believe me, we'll try it anyway. Maybe that was the secret sauce. I do it next. It's like going through the while loop one more time. Well, what's next after the end of the while loop? Doesn't make much sense, does it?
Yeah, I would
down here.
Something weird. Interesting.
Yeah. So get location, set location. Set location takes a number. So you can use your own internal counter and move things around in the pointers. Or you can rely on the spooky voodoo that save location and restore location do. So I throw those out there because I never saw any of that before. There's still more goodness to be had out of the Glide Record API. It's probably been in there since 2006. Like, not me.
Yeah, ever since Tech Now, I've been trying to, just like you said, trying to think of the use case. And the only one that I can come up with is if you're examining the list for something. So you're looking for something with a certain characteristic, and it's just easier to return to that record in the record set than do like a deep copy. You've got a very large table with many columns, and you just want to return back to it as opposed to copying the whole record out each time and then figuring out which one you want to return to.
Right. You and I probably would have saved an array of sys IDs if we wanted to really know what the position was of those records and come back and get them later. But that's
one of those things where like you would save the max that you've seen so far or something like that. Whatever. Yep. Some attribute. You're probably looking for some comparative attribute or less or whatever. Then you return. You save that. You update with that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean,
something specifically for set location you could do would be say you had a result and you wanted to pick a random result. If you knew how many there were, you could say, give me a random number between 0 and the number of records there are, and then you could use set location to actually go to that random one. The only other way you could do that would be to next through the whole thing, which would be pretty inefficient. So a little bit contrived, but
yeah,
I could see that.
I'm sure somebody's got an imaginative use case for those. That's probably why they were invented.
Yeah. Like you say, it's a tool. It's an arrow in the quiver. I just don't know exactly what you would use it for. But the more I'm in favor of knowing as much as possible whether you can think of an immediate application or not, right? Because
exactly, it's going to be one of those things like, oh yeah, I know that's when I'm going to use this. It'll come up at a really
when you need it,
time.
you'll know it.
Yeah, I mean the danger of not knowing things like that is that you have a hammer and every problem's a nail. So
yep.
All right. Okay, with that, let's get back into automated testing world. So where we left it last time is that we had started with our first test case. And I had a weird situation where I was able to run as admin, and I would get the correct results for admin, and then I would run as my ATF user, and I would get results that I didn't expect to see. So I worked with that a little bit today to figure out what was going on, and the error, I found out what the error was, and it's so embarrassing. I hate to tell you all, but in true fashion, I will tell you, which is that I had not published the workflow. So I had this workflow, and it was perfectly usable by the admin, who was the one who had created it. And then when I tried to run it as any other user, the workflow wasn't available, and that was the error that I was seeing. So there you go. I'm going to readily admit that I'm extremely dumb, and I was very publicly dumb about it. So there you go.
Oh, Dave, I should note that I was accosted by Chris Pope. He wants his flight tracker app.
It's a double-edged sword to that he both want. It's great to have somebody that excited, and it's terrible to have somebody that excited. So that was the reason why. That was the whole reason why I was seeing my ATF user. My ATF user didn't know that the workflow was there. So that was the reason why when I tried to run my test, the thing that we're testing, to recap, is when I do, let me go ahead and, let's get one more. Let's start my tab creep now. When I'm at a flight to this travel tracker, it's got a workflow that looks to see if we're within 2 days of that flight taking off. And if it does, then it's going to run the workflow to go out to the rest message and go out and populate the unique identifier. So this is really all just internal stuff. And so I did some tests to make sure that I could actually run this. So I'm going to use, in true fashion, where you've got, now we're going to do LCH test. In true fashion, let me run this. Actually, before I do that, let me impersonate the ATF user just to verify for everybody watching that this does in fact work for this. So we'll do this as ATF user. So I've got a couple of these flights that are well understood. Anytime you're testing functionality like this, you get a small test set of data that you understand really well for ATF user. We're going to set a start time of today. And again, the start time it doesn't actually have to be correct. It has to basically, it just checks that it's within the day, because the day is really the key thing for that drives all this. Oh, shoot. I was saying the DL 2043 Atlanta. And that should be sufficient. So what we want to see is we want to see the FA flight ID get populated. Mm-hmm. And notice that it happened almost immediately. Cool. So ATF user can do this. Now let me remember to go back to sysadmin, or things will get weird because my session will be the ATF user, not admin, when I'm over here trying to run the test. So anyway, so now that we've got that straightened out, we're going to actually run the test. And so the test, we go through the test. Step one of the test: impersonate my ATF user, which is really just a travel tracker ATF user, right? Form, insert some values, which is essentially the same 3 values that I need. These are the minimum values it needs to get that flight ID from the FlightAware API. Submit the current form, and then validate from the returned form that this is not empty. And we wait 1 second for that. Now, this is the thing that we found through trial and error last time. Note this right here. This looks like it's wrong. This looks like we've got a hard-coded time value in there. In fact, this is the one thing about this whole deal that's kind of misleading. So let's go into the set field values itself. You'll notice that here's what it's doing. Because what we wanted to do, we didn't want to set a hard-coded thing, because as we say, there's a window. These values in the underlying data out on that server, the FlightAware server, only exist from about 2 days ahead to about 2 weeks in the past. So you can't put a hard-coded value, because eventually, you've got a 16-day window where they're meaningful, and you don't want to have to keep updating your, that would be ridiculous to keep updating hard-coded values. So this works just fine. This will, in fact, it will submit this. It will use right now as the time, and then it doesn't have to be completely meaningful. It just has to get an answer back from the server for this particular test. But you'll notice that it basically, when it fills out this description, you don't have the ability to change the description. It fills this out at test creation time, or probably test update time. If I change this one, actually, let me go ahead and update, and let's see if it changes this value over here. It may.
I would bet that it will.
It probably. Call stack. Boop, boop. Let's go back over here. And in fact, it did update it to now.
Got it. That makes sense.
So this gets populated on save. You don't have the ability to do that. This value here, we have determined through actually running it, this value does, in fact, this is dynamic. And so every time you run it, you will get the now date time put into that start time of that field. This will not update. This will basically be static until the next time this record updates. If that makes sense.
Dave, I don't know if I apologize. I didn't have a chance to catch up on last week. Did you talk about the purpose of that little cannonball icon on the right? I'm not sure what that icon's called yet. That glyph. Yeah.
We did not know.
Okay.
I think we used it once, but we didn't really talk about it a lot.
Yeah. That allows you to use fields and variables and values and whatnot from previous steps. So if I impersonate a user, I can continue to use the value of that user throughout. Or if I'm creating a new incident, I can use the number or the reference to that incident throughout. And that's a very, very handy feature. You don't have to script to go get it.
Right. So let's, in fact, let's think about something that we could do. What's one that would be sensible in here? So, impersonate. So, would I have? Where would I get the? So, if I go further down the line, if I insert another test step beyond this form submittal. So, in here, for example, field values validation,
you should be able to get access to that form.
I should be able to test, for example, that something was the sysid, for example.
Yes.
Right. Submit a form. So I come over here. Record. So this would be the sysid, for example. Curiosity. So this would be kind of a no op test, but do I have the ability? I could come down here and just say sysid. So this would be ridiculous to not be equal, but let's just do this so that we see kind of what you could do with this. So we're basically saying this the sysid of this form is the same thing, the sysid of the newly inserted record.
Right.
So let's go ahead and update that. If this fails, then someone's gonna have to eat their hat.
Wouldn't be the first hat.
All right. So now let's go ahead and run this test. So, this is to walk through. We're going to impersonate. We're going to open the flight form. We're going to put in some values. We're going to submit it. Then we're basically doing two assertions. We only want to assert that the flight ID is not empty, the FA flight ID, and this is what's populated by the workflow, and then the rest message. And we're going to assert that the sysid is the same as the GUID of this record, which is the sysid. So we go back here, and now let me find it again with my scope creep. Let me make sure I can. I've got so many these guys running. Oh, here it is. Let me pull this over to here so that we have it available. I've got I have a test runner that has been open for a while. This guy is sitting here dutifully waiting for a client-side test to run. So we're going to go ahead and run this one test. So we're executing the server step, which is the impersonation. If we come over here, it's waiting for a browser to pick this up. If we come over here, it should be.
That's odd. Yeah, you already have one.
In fact, what might be confusing this is the fact that I have impersonated back and forth multiple times.
Oh,
since I opened this. So I'm going to go ahead and
close that.
Close this one. I'm going to start a new one.
There you go.
And it picks it up.
I hadn't thought of that.
Right. So I see this guy's executing the UI steps, and you can flip back and forth. It takes long enough. One of the things it takes, so this does actually take time, and particularly when you're running it here, out remotely, and I'm testing, I'm running this remotely. I'm testing, against my employee instance. I'm out in South Carolina on, cable modem. So it is taking screenshots and putting them up, and you'll notice that's actually a lot of the, like when it took 18 seconds, that time, the time of saving that screenshot is actually significant in this testing. So depending on how, what things are contending for bandwidth, and if you're, uploading something to Dropbox or Box at the same time or what have you, I've actually seen this exact same test take, over a minute sometimes, and it's mostly around the speed it takes to push those screenshots. So if we go to result now at this point, this is, and as I said last time, just to see anything work, we took out the impersonation so that we were running it as sysadmin, and we actually saw it succeed. But now we are actually running it as the as the ATF user without admin privileges. So that's a very big step forward.
When I was talking to one of the developers, they were showing this for the first time to the support team. They said best practice is usually just throw an impersonate up there in the first step. That's how almost all of your tests should begin.
Yeah, unless you're specifically testing admin. And even then, even then I would actually specifically impersonate the admin user you want to use, even if you expect to be running, because otherwise you have an external dependency.
Yep.
If you started it as a different admin user, it would be, so it makes perfect sense. I mean, you do this in any testing context, right? Where you're testing a interface. First thing is you log into someone, and that's what you're doing here. And again, like it would not be impossible for that test to fail. You could say, let's say you set this up and then you delete the user after that point. This test could fail, and then the whole thing, every subsequent test step would be skipped. So you see that, as we go down here, each one of these tests did in fact do that. We see our assertions and submit, and we can see that, this is the sysid that was returned. And then when we come over here, if I look at this, it's going to show me the actual values. Boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
It just shows me the templated thing, but it doesn't show me the actual. It did not substitute that for the live.
Is there additional logging for that step that would show us the comparison? Because I know
it might be down in it might be down the test log.
I'll bet it is.
That's my guess.
Because you're looking for the sysid that ends with 50 E2E. Nope, that's still in the meta string.
Record. So this is the insert, and this is the.
Yeah, and that's the test.
But you notice that the test itself.
Interesting.
Does not have that. So that's a little bit. I would maybe have not expected that. I would have expected substitution in this test.
I would have too.
I guess one of the things to think about is because the system is cleaning up all this data as soon as it's done. So you create the record, and then by the time this is done, that record no longer exists. So I guess from that standpoint, that sysid doesn't mean much to you because you can't go look at it.
Yeah, that's possible, but just as a as a value.
Yeah.
To examine, and then let's go ahead and pop this guy open, and
you can view without downloading.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did. I was too lazy to scroll off the thing. And there you go. So that's what we. Are there 3? Oh, there's more. Yeah.
There's more. That's what the ... You can also click Manage Attachments. I think that's where you go.
Right, let's look at we want to look at the lastmost one.
Good old Clippy. He's still got unemployment.
And so there you go. You can see that it has populated some of the stuff. We've got the start time. We've got the 3 values that we set. This was filled in. The alert ID was also filled in by the API when it was.
So my imaginations look like half of the CSS is gone.
Yes. So this is. You'll notice that this is not. So this is not rendered with the full CSS, and that was the thing we talked about a little bit last week, which is that you're getting kind of a raw HTML view of this. So you're not getting a full styled, total view of what you would see you're not getting a pixel perfect view of the UI at this point. So the rendering engine that does this is not pulling, does not appear to be pulling all that stuff in. And I'm not sure. Let's go ahead and let's rerun this and let's actually just sit here and watch this thing. You notice the debug info has a bunch of JSON styled, information about what's happening. Probably our sysid would be in here if we looked for that.
That's a good point. Yeah, it probably will show up here.
So let's go ahead and let's do that again. Let's just watch it. So we're in the test log. We'll go back to the actual test itself. I'm going to run it. Let's come over here and watch it run.
See, I don't understand why the render doesn't work right if it's right there in front of our eyes. Are you on the nightly release, Dave?
No, I'm not.
Huh.
This is in fact this is the release. This is the Istanbul patch 0 release.
I think part of the answer to that, Chuck, is that the ability to do a screenshot of a page is not perfect because it's basically, I think what's happening is there's some sort of representation of the DOM that's taken and then it uses HTML5 canvas and some other weird stuff, basically tricks to get an approximation, but it's never going to be pixel perfect because it's not a true screenshot. It's really just saying, this is a snapshot of the DOM at the time and what we think you were seeing.
I thought previous tests I saw.
Yeah, it's not like doing what we're doing if I use Sketch or if I use,
Right.
We're not taking the pixel of the rendered display here. We're taking something that's a little abstracted from that, I guess, as Josh was saying. So again, that's a thing. I'm kind of talking off my hinders there because I don't know that much about, I don't really know that much about how it's implemented. We're kind of guessing just based on how we think you would have to skin that cat. That's probably how it is.
So we have a question in the chat. John Caruso is saying, did I hear correctly? Any records created during the test are deleted after execution. And would that also include records created as a result of business rules being executed?
I believe so. Let's go look at table cleanup. So this is right here. Let's so these are part of what gets auto flushed, right? And so I don't believe there's any way to turn off the auto flush of the created records.
Well, and I think so. The auto flush, I believe, is going out there and it's cleaning up the records, basically the results.
Yeah.
But I think there's a different thing, which is record rollback, where it's actually doing a it'd almost be like a database transaction rollback. It's not exactly the same thing, but there's newer functionality in the platform that says, essentially track everything we've done in this session and now roll it back. And that's what it's doing. So I believe the answer is that even secondary things created or triggered by business rules, really anything triggered by that would be rolled back. Have to verify that, but that is my understanding.
Yeah, that's kind of what that essentially it's like you're returning to a snapshot of the DB state right before you ran the test. That from the beginning of the test to the end of the test, anything that happened, in the data itself is going to go away. We can that's testable. Do we want to test that?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's because
why not? Let's Let's just let's do a quick business rule. Where's my studio? Let's just do a quick business rule that creates anything. When you insert a flight. Let's just create.
Oh, you're in your marketing events app.
Whoop.
Minor details.
I was wondering what that. I saw your app picker said that, and you were working on the flight aware test plan. I'm like, something's out of joint here.
All right, so let's create. All right, go ahead. I cut.
Oh yeah, no, it's all good. Well, I was just going to say is, and I think part of the reasoning behind this is because when you think about the amount of garbage data that you could potentially be generating as a part of these tests, it is probably much safer to consistently clean this up and get rid of it than to have stuff left behind, because it would get out of control very, very quickly.
I can understand. I can understand where the question is coming from, because if let's say you're getting a failure and it's one of the circumstances where the failure is one that maybe you're having a hard time replicating any other way, but the test can do it, then essentially what you want to do is use the test as a debugging mechanism, right?
Yeah, and I can definitely see why you would want it too. I agree with you there, because if you want to go back and take a look at what was it actually like, what was the record, what was the actual state of the record at the time that something happened or when it failed. So in this case, you're going to just create a rule. We're going to insert something.
Create an incident. Blah, 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 blah.
And so in this case, we get, even bonus because we're creating records in a completely different scope. So different application, different part of the platform. So this will be a pretty interesting test.
I believe the only thing it doesn't roll back is the number generation. We'll find out on that too.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, I'm curious about that. Yeah, I guess it depends on how extensive and deep that rollback functionality goes.
Right.
With that, we'll just say a short description. I'm doing this in a before. Let's make this an after, because
because you are working on somebody else's records.
Yes. gr.
After what? Oh, you got to do an insert update. Something.
Which where and what?
When to
back
run.
in your when
Oh
to
yeah.
run.
Oh yeah. I did. Okay. Let's just
Check
do it on.
something.
Let's do it on insert and update.
You do want this to run, right?
That's another of my classic. Everyone has kind of their patterns of things you consistently screw up. That is absolutely like not checking those is absolutely one of mine.
Why isn't it running?
All right, so just create a new record, setting nothing but short description, inserting, done. And then, in fact, what we can even do, let's go ahead and while we're doing that, let's assert on this guy.
Go out there and see if it actually created it.
Yes. So let's. How would we do that? Now, what we want to do is add a test step. We want to open an existing record. We want to insert after field values validation.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to pick it from incident.
Now the question is, how are we going to know what incident it was?
Yeah. I'm going to have to do something different. Well, now let's do.
You don't want to test the short description? You gave it a very specific title.
I guess you could do that if you.
Let's do this. Let's just make it. This is kind of hokey. Let's just do let's make let's actually leave it that way and let's give it some reference field.
Do correlation ID.
Okay, let's do that. I'm fine with that. Update that. So now the record we want this to be that's not going to work.
No, it's not, is it? I think you'll have to
I don't have the ability to do a freeform. Well, let's see. Do I have the ability to do a freeform query in one of these?
I think you could. You could do a run script.
Let's do
that. Always works.
Run server-side script
or record query. I don't know if that would do it.
Let's try record query. Oh, there you go. Perform a database query to verify for record matching conditions are met.
Okay.
Let's see. I should be able to carry those forward. So, let's say
is incident.
Oh, I like where this is going.
There you go. Condition fields.
Incident.
Inky dent.
Correlation ID is
Cannonball.
There we go. Cool.
All right. So now what we expect to see is this assertion pass, and then we're going to go look for it, and we should expect to not see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Here, check your incident numbers now. What's the number counter sitting at?
Oh yeah. Okay. Let's.
So as we're thinking about this,
let's set active to true back over in here too, in our newly created one.
I think it defaults to true.
Does it default though? Let's do it explicitly.
What were you asking, Josh?
I was just going to say this kind of brings up an interesting thing. So as you're, obviously you're seeing us discover this for the first time, is it probably makes sense that, if you're out there building stuff, spend time just familiarizing yourself with all the things, kind of like the APIs discussion. If you don't know it's there, you might not go down the right path.
End up doing the hard way.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of just opening the thing up and playing with it and kicking the tires and writing test programs. And I mean, that is literally what we're doing here, right? Okay.
The flip side of that is you don't want to bore yourself by reading the phone book.
Well,
you can overdo it.
I'm going to guess a lot of us. So this is very much the style people have, right? Which is you get a new thing, you open the box from Amazon. what do? Do you sit down and read the instructions?
Heavens no.
Or do you grab the thing and start screwing around with it? And there are certainly things, the combination, the cross product of person. Some person will read every instruction. Some person will read some of the instructions. Some person will never read an instruction. Depending on what it is, I might read the instruction. Usually I won't. But
oddly enough, we had a flip of personalities on the latest gadget that we got. I usually do not read the instructions, and my wife reads everything. In this particular case of a little Bluetooth dongle, she did not want to read the instructions, and I did. I went, what has happened? Who are you?
All right. So if we look at this, we've got 49 incidents. Last one in here is 1029. So
okay.
I have no idea what's happened. I'm not taking that number to the bank.
No. Jump to number maintenance, and that'll tell us, because after this is done, if it cleans them all up, you're still going to see 1029 is your latest one.
Jump to number maintenance. Where's that?
Oh, just to see if it leaves that behind.
System definition, number maintenance.
Yep.
Wait,
yeah, go to the app menu filter where it says ink.
Okay.
No. You're on the menu. Filter to the left.
To the left. To the left.
Your filter. No, the menu filter. Where you normally type in business rules.
Oh, this thing.
There you go.
The navigator.
Navigator is what we call that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Not the explorer, the navigator.
Hey, number maintenance.
Yeah, I've never in my life done this thing.
And you know why? Because you don't have to anymore.
All right.
This used to be like a common stomping ground when I'd make a new table. You are looking for a prefix ink, and you got to drill into it because it's in two separate tables now. Or now as in like Calgary. There you go. And we are currently at 10029. We'll inspect this. In fact, you might want to bookmark that. Although that's up to you.
Yeah.
Save you a little bit of drilling around.
So we'll just remember 10029.
Okay.
Right you are.
And while Dave's going back, in terms of instructions, my tendency, the amount of instructions that I read has a direct correlation with the expensiveness of the gadget.
All right. That's a good point there. Or the combustibility.
Or that, yes.
If it's going to blow up, you want to make sure you know all the safety warnings.
All right, I'm going to run this test. Let's see what happens. And notice it too. This is actually the first time we've done this where we've got a server step, we got UI step, we got server steps. So you notice it kind of chunks those together.
Oh yeah, you're right. Interesting.
So this is the first time where we've returned back to a server step after the UI step. So it's going to do this, setting values, running step 2, 3. And we come over here, we'll finish this up, and then we're going to jump back over here. I'm almost certain that this is going to pass.
I think it will.
But then the curiosity will be what happens to that incident when we're done.
Yeah.
And I'm almost certain that the incident will also be gone.
The other thing I'm curious about is, I don't know if you've inserted incidents before, but you might be generating a cross-scope privilege for the first time. I just realized.
Aha, good point.
Yeah, I almost certainly am. Oh, let's see. That in fact could be what's happening. Let's go to the result and see what happened.
Oh, what?
JavaScript error. No records matching query. So, could not read. Yep, security restricted. So it is a cross-scope privilege thing.
Read operation on table incident for travel tracker was granted and added. Hold on.
All right, let's just okay, fully.
So this goes back to run this, run the functionality before you run the test, because I think it is going to work the second time now that cross-scope privilege has been generated.
You think?
I think so. Well, then again, I mean, unless it rolled back the cross-scope privilege as part of the rollback.
Let's go ahead and do I have my
switch over to Studio?
Well, I had a check. I'm not gonna be able to find it in my 17 Windows here. My let's go ahead and just get another one. Yep. May still be logged into this as ATF user because I had an incognito session open to this.
You think an ATF user doesn't have the ability to?
Yeah, let's just do ATF user from Travel Tracker.
Can you create an incident?
Oh gosh, darn it! I don't want Eileen. I want.
Hello, Eileen. It's nice seeing you again.
It might be the first time that I've seen a test user that wasn't able tutor.
I rarely use able anymore just because you said that.
I actually do find myself intentionally using other users now because of that as well.
ever since last year's knowledge and doing that session with Martin Wood, I used Lucius Bagnoli because it's just because he's interesting.
Lucius
Bagnoli 20423 Atlanta. Let's see what happens with this guy.
I seem to gravitate towards Alejandro Mezcal.
Mezcal is in tequila?
That's yeah. It's a variant. Right.
Now let's go over to.
Hooray! We have cross-scope privileges, and ATF user can create an incident.
What's interesting though is that almost does imply that that privilege may have been rolled back.
That may be why it wouldn't have worked the second time.
Yeah,
that's actually super interesting because you're right. Is that cross scope? It was granted, right? That's what we saw from the log, but it wasn't there, which really says I'm not exactly sure how this is implemented under the hood, but it really does look like we are literally just popping the stack on the database.
Yep.
Like we're setting we're starting a transaction, we're doing this, and when we're done, rollback. That may literally be what's happening as a transaction, and then everything that happens is gone.
Well, no, it doesn't do audit. It doesn't roll back. If I remember right, it wasn't sys audit records or there was something that does not get rolled back.
Okay.
Simply because it would be a loophole in the security of the system.
Now, just quickly do this, and we should not see this cross scope generated. Bring that out because I don't really need it. Submit it, and we should just see the record. We should just see our incident.
And logically speaking, most developers are going to do this before they run tests.
Right.
Tests may be running on the test instance, which may not have that. If this is the first time you've promoted your changes, promoted the test from dev to test. Actually, no, the cross-scope privileges are promoted with the app.
Yeah, they should be. Because once you promoted them, they're no longer going to be added anymore, so they have to be there.
So what we've got here is kind of an edge case by the fact that we created functionality we had never actually run simply for this test.
That's out of the norm.
Right. So that would be an atypical situation, but it is worth calling out specifically, right? That if you need a cross-scope privilege, it's got to exist before you hit the button on the test, or that's going to be a problem.
Good.
All right, let's run it again. Now we expect to see success.
I know what we expect to see. We always expect to see success.
You're far too optimistic, Chuck.
Hey, I'm the one who forgot to increment the end counter. Here we go.
And one of the things too, as we've seen from demonstrating this, is there is almost certainly a watch pot never boils aspect to this. The automated part of it, this is a special case. You would not normally, I'm going to assume normally, other than developing the test, you're never going to run an individual test like this, right? You're almost always running suites.
Exactly.
And you're not waiting around for them.
Nope.
So it's very much a coffeeware type application, right? You're gonna press the button. You're gonna do something else until.
It's compiling. It's compiling. Oh wait.
Did not work. So we're seeing exactly the same thing.
This is a good exercise in debugging your tests.
So we're seeing the no records matching, but I don't see the security thing this time.
Evaluator.
Line 11. So this is the line that's failing.
It says
ATF
it's not
step description generator. Get condition description.
And it says ATF step description generator is not defined. Did
Now
somebody
that
forget a
could
global
just
in
be a stack trace thing where we're seeing
there? Could be.
we may
No,
not. Well,
this is
I don't know.
clearly not defined.
Because the step output message, no records matching query, that's really weird. Because I would expect a more friendly, simply, no records match the query. What is the, so that's why it shows there. I do know we have debugging turned on. Is there, so scroll over to the right. And that's a much friendlier look. So there should be at least one record.
Incident match, query correlation ID.
So I'm wondering if this is just by virtue of the fact that debugging is turned on. So we're seeing maybe significantly more than we should be. Because that's the message on the right is what I would expect to see in this case.
Well, I wouldn't even expect to see that. We set the value.
We did, right? But
let's look at our incidents that we created by hand over here.
See what the correlation ID is. Make sure
that the correlation ID is there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that correlation ID is just a string field, so there shouldn't be anything special about it. But just show XML, yeah.
That's my standard.
I never started using that until I started hanging out with you guys. I rarely ever use that.
It's so useful.
Yeah, especially as opposed to like changing your form to show this thing.
Or going to the dictionary and what's the name of the field. Yeah.
Throwing a bunch of columns out there in a list view. Yeah, just so many other ways to do it that are worse.
That are worse.
So this was populated, and if we look at our display value, it's it's the thing we expect. So it is set. So why? So now we have two mysteries that we're dealing with here. One is why did it fail? And is this really what happened? Is this really why it's failing?
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at the system log and see if we.
The other thing I'm curious about after we've looked at the system log is to see is there any kind of log operation that we can throw in as a step, so that we could potentially say log a value from a previous step just to see what it is. And this is where, so we talked earlier about the records going away. This is where it would be really helpful to be able to see what the record.
Well, the record didn't go away though. We've got 10032 was the incident that was created. And 10029 was our max before. The record is still there because the test never finished. It didn't get a chance to clean up.
Is that right? So do we have three?
There should only be two, I thought. Sorry,
well,
maybe
at least one.
No, these are the two. We did two by hand.
Oh, you did two by hand. Oh, okay.
We did two by hand. Yeah, so we don't have the one. Right. Yeah, there was not one.
Gotcha.
However, if we come over here, we show the counter. 32 was where we were. I
believe 33 is the next one to be
33,
created.
yes.
So that looks correct then.
Okay.
So we never created the incident from.
Well, it could also just mean that it rolled the number back. So it could have created it and then deleted it and rolled this number back as well.
Interesting mystery.
Yeah, this is interesting. And I'm positive that somebody's going to run into exactly this, because this is.
All right, here's what I'm going to do. Because now I am really, really curious about this. We can roll it down, but we're not rolling it out of the log file.
Ah, that's a good point.
Right? I would not expect that. That would be some serious mojo.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get today's log file.
Open her up.
Unzip it right quick. Go ahead and use this. Nope, wrong thing. Open.
There we go.
And now we get to test how Visual Studio Code handles large files.
That's kind of what I was doing. I was actually doing two things at once here. It's not
Sublime is
choking on it.
amazingly good at it. Yeah, it looks pretty good.
All right, so let's see. Let's do.
Theoretically, there should be a.
It's only 279,000 lines of code. I mean, log file. You haven't written code that long before?
Oh, all the time. So nothing with 32. But I guess the interesting thing there, think about this. It may or may not show up because unless there's some kind of code that's specifically logging that incident number for some reason.
Wouldn't it be?
Because you're never
necessarily going to log it because we weren't doing it from the form.
Right. It's all business rule based. And I also wonder if there's anything special about ATF sessions.
All right, here's what we need to do. Okay, I think I have determined this. So I'm gonna go ahead and minimize this. Minimize this. So let's go into our business rule and let's just add some logging so that we can tell something's happening. Let's GS debug.
Yep.
Inserted ints. Inserted get display name. And let's do the sysid. Just do. I probably should have.
Do you want display name or display value?
Probably display value because display name is going to give you.
Let's give you this short description. Let's do display value.
Yeah, and John is mentioning in the chat that he's wondering if the logging is going to get rolled back too, and I'm actually very curious about that. I almost think that will be.
The node log is going to get rolled back.
The node log. That's an interesting point. You might want to do.
Oh, you're saying this log might get rolled back,
right?
Oh,
do like a gs.info.
Let's do the same. Yeah, I'm okay with doing the same thing in gs.info. If we do an add info message, we should be able to see it in the screenshot, right?
True.
That's actually a really interesting point. Yeah. That's a sideways way to get at it, but I like it.
Let's just try it both ways, and maybe one of these pieces of spaghetti will stick to the wall. We're actually getting close to the hour, but I'm having fun. So if you guys are fine, I'm fine.
I'm all good. Yeah, I wanna figure this one out.
Before we go too much farther, let's look at the chat on the YouTube.
Yep.
Does anybody have any questions that we want to tackle before we fiddle with this?
So we've answered most of the questions in line. John Caruso mentions that maybe you guys could get one of the developers of ATF to sit on one of these happy hour sessions, hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak. I think it'd be pretty interesting, and maybe we can chat with some people and see if something like that would be a possibility.
I think we can probably hook that up next week. We can find one to. We will have access to a lot of those people, so. I think that is sold. We can do that. We may not do it because I think probably we've kind of arrived at like 2 in a row. Unless people are dying to see more of this, we might want to do something else and come back to this. And we're probably not going to do it next week. I know Josh and I are going to be in San Diego. Are you going to be in San Diego, Chuck?
I haven't been instructed to.
Okay.
Oh wait, for the week after?
For demo days next week.
Is it demo days already? No, I have not been invited to demo days. I usually look at the TOIs when things are polished up a little.
Okay.
Okay. So we may or may not have one. It'll be up to Chuck. If Chuck wants to have one next week, it's on him. All right. So let's go ahead and we'll do this. And then we could maybe, in 2 weeks, we could continue with this if nobody has anything else burning they want to examine. So at this point, and let's go ahead and just. I can find my incognito window. Really is out of control at this point. All right. Two, 3, 4, 0. And we should see the add info message. Blah, blah. Okay.
Cool. So we got that.
That is exactly what we expect to see. Great. All right. And we'll hang with this for a little bit more. I have a dog who is informing me he wants to walk. And I think we all know exactly what happens if you say what?
I thought we said display value. Why did I see 2 sys IDs up there?
Because I logged specifically 2 sys IDs.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I logged the sys ID of the incident and of the originating flight.
Gotcha.
So we'll run this test one more time.
I'm going to guess it's not going to run successfully.
Well, it's not going to run successfully. The question is, what do we log when it doesn't run successfully?
I know. Just take it.
We didn't change anything.
If it runs successfully,
any of the logic. Yeah, then we have a much worse problem to succeed.
Surprise!
That's one of those counterintuitive things about programming is there are times when a thing succeeds and that is a terrible outcome.
Yep.
where you think if this succeeds now, I don't actually know why it succeeded, and not knowing what's happening is worse than, is more important than success or failure of this one thing.
Yep.
We used to have an award at the place I worked at. We had a box full of chicken bones. It was specifically for things that you fixed and you don't know how. Like, just throw the chicken bones.
That is just the worst thing. You're touching something, and now the thing is, no longer problematic, and you do not know why.
Voodoo.
Like, which implies you don't know what's going to happen again, and you don't know anything. You don't have new info about it. All right. So if we look at this last thing, we should see. Oh gosh, dog it. That's not what I meant to do.
So there it is.
It inserted. It's a little faded out, but it's there.
So that's interesting. So we do, and let's go and look. So let's test some hypotheses. So at the very least, let's get a little clarity on what exactly is happening. So we know this happened. We've got a screenshot.
Did you put that before or after the insert? I wasn't watching carefully in your business.
This is the very last thing. So this is after.
Okay, good.
Yeah, this is the last. This is that final assertion that's failing when we're doing that. This is like that. This is that. Yeah, this is that. This is not the final assertion because that's server side. There's no UI component. This is the last thing that happened. So this is the form. This is the result form after we inserted the flight record. So the business rule has run. We did insert this.
Yep.
Now let's go see.
Assertion.
We go over here. We've got. If we look at the incidents, we won't have it. We probably now this is where we can actually directly test your hypothesis, Chuck, about whether we're rolling back the dictionary number. Well, actually, look at this.
Hey.
Oh no, that's the one we. That's the one we did. That's also the testing that we did.
Okay, got it. I was gonna say that's weird.
036 is the one that we
you're right.
Just created. If I can find the darn thing. Good gravy. All right. Yeah. So this is. Where did it go? Did I minimize it?
Oh, I think it actually might be a browser window.
All right. This descended into madness. I've lost complete control of my screen.
Too much stuff open.
Yes.
Keep hitting Command Tab and Control Tab till you hit something.
It's completely hidden under something. Okay. All right. So let's go look at let's look at this and see, did we roll back our counter? Because 36 is what we had. We did, in fact, roll back the counter. So you were absolutely correct on that. Your gut feeling was absolutely exactly right. So we even roll back the counter when we do them. So it is literally, we scoured this thing. It's as if the test data never happened when we're done with this. What we don't know, the part that we don't understand is this. So this is where we'll leave it. And we'll leave this as a study question. What is happening here? Why is that? Why are we failing in what is a really innocuous looking assertion?
Mm-hmm.
Is this actually what we're failing on?
Well, and something that we may want to test later is turning off debugging to see if this is just extensive, more extended logging because debugging is turned on. And then the other thing is there's also a test step called log, and we might be able to use that to log the value. So we can use that to actually log values of previous steps. And so that would be a way to look at what is the thing we're comparing against actually equal. Mm-hmm. So, because right now we don't know. We've logged the one thing, but we haven't logged the other thing.
Right. Okay. So we'll leave it here. So for next time that we do this, and again, that could be in 2 weeks. It could be whenever. We'll examine this. One of the things that Josh had brought up is the possibility of using Jasmine like in the run script as a test step. So that's a thing that we'll also try to get up to see whether we can do whether we can be asserting, basically doing unit test style assertions inside of Jasmine in these things. So almost a more like closer to the middle, like basically using this as a mechanism to run the Jasmine tests, which is kind of an interesting. It will be worth talking to those developers if we get a chance next week to find out, is that actually is that actually an intended use case, or is that sort of a loophole in the fact that is exposed? This may not be what's intended. They may not actually intend this to be a mechanism to run Jasmine. It may just be, it may just be a, I don't know what you call it, like an off-label use of it. It's not prohibited. But it, it's not prohibited, but isn't necessarily encouraged. So,
I think it is what they want, though. I'm not sure. But
is that what they want? I don't have any insight on that.
Yeah. So. We'll get answers on that one for sure.
Okay, cool. Last check for questions. Anybody have anything before we?
So the last question was from John. He just said, "Did a message get written to the log, i.e., not rolled back?"
All right, let's do that. Oh, so to the log. Let's look at that, and that'll be our last thing we do here.
And I'm going to guess that
my hypothesis is rollback.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
From the data table, this table, yes, but from the node log, no. Is what I'm going to because you can't suppress.
Something weird is happening. Oh, this is probably. I wonder actually if the I wonder if the workflows are still running. I wonder if the workflows exist, but because you see all these workflow errors.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if the workflows that were kicked off still are running.
That would be weird.
Homework.
But the debug record is not here. The one that we added to the business rule, don't see it. So it sure looks like this got rolled back as well.
And we'll leave it as an exercise for later to check the node log itself. It probably is in the node log, I would guess. Unless we're suppressing it somehow. And
just looking at this sure looks to me like this is what I just said. It looks like the workflow is still running, and then it's failing because current record is not there. Isn't that what it looks like to you guys?
That's what it looks like. We'll have to investigate that, because what I'm curious about is I would guess
would the
that
workflow
those contexts have to go away, right, as part of the rollback, but maybe it's not a really clean process, as they're, maybe some things are going away before other things are gone. So you've got only 3 created today, or started today.
I'll look at that. But all the ones that I ran that would have finished, they wouldn't be active. So I don't know. Right. So the way to do this would be the way to test this would be to change this ID to something weird, and then see, after the test, do I have workflows running against that weird flag?
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, but we're not going to do that because we could do this for a long time. We can't use up all the goodness. All right, I'm going to de-share now. That's always the worst part of the whole deal.
It's time to play Rate Your Beer.
I have a feeling my rating is going to be higher than yours.
I would think so. Yours is in like my top 5 what you're drinking.
All right. All right. Round the horn. Josh, let's start with you.
Okay, so the Dragon's Milk is delicious. It's probably a 4.25, which is
you're
pretty
ready.
high for me.
Oh, high for you. Okay,
That's high for me. It's really hard to go above a 4.25. Once you hit 4.5, you're talking crazy town.
All right, Chuck.
Good old Tecate. If you're looking for a beer that makes you burp, this is a solid 5. But for flavor and body, and it's going to be a 3.
That is generous. Oh my
Watches
god!
down the tacos.
See, 3 is
I
my
was gonna say
starting.
2.25 was where I was expecting. I'd have taken the under on 3 for sure. My Rolling Rock, solid 3. I think it's exactly defines the middle of the road. This is actually, so in our last minute here, it's funny that this is like the rating, the 5-point rating on a beer or anything like a book in Amazon or a product in Amazon. It's such a non-normalized thing, right? Yep. We all are using the same thing, and there is no what do you call it? I hear
still
this word
a bias.
No, what's the word what's the thing you use to grade something against? Like a teacher uses this.
Syllabus.
No, not syllabus.
No.
It's the I hear this word every day of my life because I live with a teacher. But
the sigma or what?
Rubric. There's not a rubric to define that. So, for example, our mutual friend John Taylor Williams, if you're his untapped friend, he rates almost everything he ever takes a 5. He has so many 5s that it really it really doesn't have meaning.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I always start so low, because I always am afraid that I'm going to find something better and I won't know how to differentiate it from the other things. And that's the only reason I rate this stuff, is so I can find the really good stuff later.
I may only have have I ever rated one thing 5-star in Untapped, and I think that was the Dogfish Head Theobroma. And I can't even remember if somewhere I was talking about it and I could not remember the name of it, but it just occurred to me. Theobroma. It was kind of like this chili chocolatey thing, like $30 for a 500 ml bottle, and it's worth it. It
sounds delicious. Yeah,
sounds like a chemical I throw in my pool.
It sounds Theobroma actually, I think, literally means something like ambrosia of the gods or something like that. But it's very close to the chemical name of something that's in chocolate, I think, as well. It's one of these things that has a couple resonances to it. But anyway, we've descended into beer geekery here at the end. All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you. We actually, we didn't make a lot of headway, but I actually like the stuff that we did, because we're kind of digging into. We really had, with this automated testing framework, we are very much in the position of every person out there, right? Which is, there's not a whole lot of documentation, and this is what I'm going to do. One of the things I'm doing at Knowledge 17 is I'm going to be doing a session on this. So I'm partly responsible for educating the world on how some of this stuff works. And at this point, I'm educating myself. And so this is where you start. You kind of naively start poking it and see what's happening. And we weren't sure how the rollback worked, and now we have a little insight into that. And we're going to kind of continue forward in this vein. So
yeah, good stuff.
This is the fun. I think this is enormously fun. This is the part I like of my job. So, all right, gentlemen, Josh, Chuck, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, everybody who was here live and everybody who watches afterwards. And we will catch you again next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.